Welcome back, folks. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. Unfortunately, we are not coming to you after a Yankees win. I know that's very rare. Seems like they always win. They were vying for their 8th straight win. However, fate had other plans. Clay Holmes finally gave up a run. He actually gave up 4 of them to catch up for all the runs he didn't give up. And the Yankees had a total, utter meltdown late in the game. So, Gary, tough game. You really don't want this to be, hanging over your head. I think there are a lot of things that you could take away from this one. I have to start off by saying Aaron Boone and the Yankees did a horrible job priming Clay Holmes for this moment. Okay. This was a need. This was a save opportunity. Stop pitching Clay Holmes in 7-2 ball games against the White Sox. Okay. I said it off air. I really believe this. This isn't like a hindsight Hank thing. I said it when he came out. I was like, why are we using Clay Holmes? Like, we talk about not overusing the bullpen, and having him ready for October. Well, I'm not even talking about October. Having Clay Holmes pitch 3 out of the last 4 games was dumb. I know he went a while without pitching. You want to get him some work, fine. They already did. They didn't need to pitch him in the 7-2 ball game. And so, is that the entire reason why Clay Holmes gave up 4 hits and 4 runs? No. But I think that had something to do with it. I don't like my closer pitching 3 of the last 4 games. And when you are a Yankee team that has been as dominant as they have, and you're putting him in against the freaking White Sox in a 7-2 game to get him some work, you've completely lost the entire point of usage. But
yeah,
I want to get your thought on that.
You know what? It's very, because I like that you brought up that you don't want to be a hindsight Hank. And I feel like on this show, we always try to address when we're going to do that. But what's so interesting is that I don't like not pitching your best guys just because you're playing the White Sox. And just because, like, if you're not going to pitch Clay Holmes and maybe the game gets away, all of a sudden the game gets close. Now it's like high leverage situation. Clay Holmes is coming into the game. And I'm not saying that it was the right move that Boone made the other day, closing that game out with Holmes, but I see why they want to do things that way because they try to keep guys on schedule. But to your point, when you pitch 3 of the last 4 days, you would like to believe if someone's doing that the situation warranted that. And the situation was that we were playing the Chicago White Sox, and now we're playing the Seattle Mariners, who frankly aren't scoring runs. The Mariners' offense has been atrocious this year. So the Yankees have to believe with their staff and the entire unit, not just Clay Holmes, that they should have a really good opportunity without Clay Holmes to go get outs with this team. So coming into the series and coming into the game 1, it was interesting. It was very interesting to have Clay Holmes in a situation where it felt like he'd been used up when, frankly, the situation says he should not have been. So that's where I'm at with it. Even when he's overused, he shouldn't be giving up 4 runs. I'm not trying to make any excuses for the guys.
No.
He'll tell you that. Thought Todd Frazier, side note, thought Todd Frazier was excellent today on the broadcast. He was great. Felt like he had a little bit of a Tony Romo moment, like where he was just calling every pitch. He was calling out and guessing when Stroman was going to throw that splitter, which Stroman's splitter looked really good today. He was absolutely dialed, and it'll bring up a topic that we'll discuss probably at length on this show because not much to talk about when you blow a save like that, but the 6-man rotation. And you talked about it in your show by yourself. A lot of people, if you haven't watched that show, you really should. And Jake brings up the point that the Yankees right now, given their staff, you'd like to imagine that there is no real odd man out outside of Nestor Cortez and maybe a Marcus Stroman. But coming into this start, Marcus Stroman was completely dialed. And they came into this game, actually, Jake, mentioning how much of a hitter's strike zone the home plate umpire had today and how much that might have a negative impact on Marcus Stroman and his ability to pitch and get around the game. Well, interestingly enough, Marcus Stroman found a way to manipulate the strike zone, find a pitch he could rely on. His ERA is 3.05 right now. So if I told you that we'd be sitting here in the present day and Marcus Stroman's ERA was hovering at 3, I tell you, you need to go find somebody else to push out into the bullpen. That's what I would tell you. That's what I would tell you. So having said all that, where are we, Jake, with this rotation? Because Garrett Cole is
It's a
coming
good problem
back.
to have.
It's a great problem to have, but regardless, it is a problem, I guess you can say. What do you do? Do you move somebody out? Do you say, hey, Nestor Cortez maybe isn't spinning the ball his best? Do you say Marcus Stroman hasn't necessarily been consistent? You saw 2 or 3 starts ago, he had 10 walks over 2 starts. You're like, where is the Marcus Stroman we saw early on? And then now he's clearly bounced back. Where is the odd man out? Because we know, Jake, we actually kind of agreed on this, that Clark Schmidt, at least stuff-wise, was kind of the odd man out there. And the ceiling wasn't necessarily as high with Clark Schmidt. Well, that answer is just not there anymore. Clark Schmidt is not a shoe away.
He's laughing at us for ever saying that.
And rightfully so, and our hand is up. But guess what, Jake? Here's the funny part. Nobody was in the comment section saying that Clark Schmidt had the opportunity to be a 2 or 3 in this rotation, but
no.
Long behold, that's what we're seeing. So now we're in the situation, Jake, where I'm going to come up with a conclusion that we are pitching too well. Everybody's pitching way too well to push any of these guys into the bullpen. I just think you've kind of got to You've just got to allow these guys to get on the mound with some regularity, because if anything is going to be a strength for the Yankees, we talked about it at the beginning of the year. Maybe it was a weakness, is where we get innings. It's a strength now. It is a strength objectively. I lean in on that strength. I go 6-man rotation. I think it really helps.
No one's talking about this topic, and I think this is the most important topic for the Yankees right now. With the news that Garrett Cole is going to be facing batters, I think tomorrow or soon.
That's right.
I mean, this is more relevant than ever. And I have not seen anybody bring it up. And so, we're sitting here now, good problem to have. But like you said, problems need to be fixed. They need to be figured out. So you can say, oh, it's a good problem. Yeah, but you have to make a decision. You can't.
You still
just
have to answer the question.
Yeah, you can. Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Right.
Just sit there. No, it doesn't work that way. Garrett Cole is better than every single pitcher in this rotation.
That's right.
The minute he comes back, probably not. He's probably the 6th out of 6 guys. What are, I guess, rationale, belief, theory, if what that is holds true about missing spring training, Garrett Cole won't be ready until August, potentially. Feeling himself in August, maybe July, definitely not June.
I'd say, well, this is the thing. I would agree with what you're saying if he was normal, but we have to remember this, Jake. I actually really like where your head's at with this entire concept, because people have to remember that these guys do have a schedule, which is the point you're getting at.
Yeah.
And the Yes broadcast has mentioned this is start of spring training. This is a start of spring training moment for Garrett Cole. This is like, hey, he just showed up in jeans and jeans and a t-shirt, and he's ready to just face hitters for the first time in the spring. But maybe 2-3 weeks from now, that's when he's going to start really revving it up, start seeing 98, 99. That's actually the schedule that these guys usually show up in. People don't really understand that even in spring training, a lot of people don't talk about this, but guys show up to spring training very early. Carlos Rodon, perfect example. He showed up 3 weeks early. Dude was in Tampa, obviously lives there. So he was at George Steinbrenner Stadium very early, right? So having said all that, Jake, Garrett Cole is not a normal person. No. Garrett Cole he's not Blake Snell. He's not any type of guy who, he was a little rough out the gate in spring training, and then he shows up in April and he's not himself. No, Garrett Cole, outside of the first 3 weeks of being a Yankee, he's been dialed. Day one, he shows up. He's an ace all the time. He's an ace in October. He's an ace in August, right? He's an ace in May. So having said all that, I think Garrett Cole has a very quick rev up time in comparison to every other pitcher that we're ever going to see. And right now, Luis Gil is an ace. His
He is.
stuff says he's an ace. I'm not saying that you just pencil him in, sign him to a 6-year deal. We've found ourselves an ace. No, Luis Gil, in terms of what he's doing right now, is ace quality. He figured out what he's doing with his fastball command. That is a dialed in ace. And Carlos Rodon has shown I have bounced back. Guys can leave the yard on me, but I'm going to miss bats the way I did in Chicago. That's the player that we sign. So now when we bring in Garrett Cole, and he's maybe a little bit behind schedule, his schedule is faster than pretty much every other guy in the league. So now what? We're talking about remember the guesstimate, Jake, I had mid June? I said, I can see him like getting revved up and being ready by mid to late June. That timeline's looking really good. Now, I didn't come up with that timeline myself. They said we're shutting him down till June 1st. Well, when the Yankees start winning, Jake, you're not just going to throw him out June 1st. You actually have time to get him to face batters. Okay, how are you feeling, right? So they're going to slow play this. Mid to late June is actually seeming pretty hot right now.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense because, if it was a position player, maybe you argue, okay, the rush matters, but it's a player who can only impact a game every time he plays in it. And that's only once every 5, 6 potentially, games. And so I like them taking it easy with Cole. Would I love to, have you and I at Yankee Stadium against the Dodgers and see Garrett Cole versus like Glasnow or somebody or Yamamoto? Absolutely. But the reality of the situation is that would be what? June 9th, the Saturday game?
Yeah. Yeah, around there.
I mean, he's not going to be ready for that.
No, and if he's not, then so what? Right?
Yeah,
Because I get it that we're trying to, it's part of the storyline of being a baseball fan is that you want to look at some of these games and circle it on the calendar, right? But this is what's so important for people to understand. And honestly, I think Yankees fans, and I don't mean to insult them here, Jake, they might understand this concept less than any other fan base in the history of baseball, is that not every game means the world. Not every game does. And today's game does. Now, I'm all on like, I totally get it. But when you're talking about maybe a few weeks ago, we go play Baltimore, we were pretty underwhelming, right? And someone says, oh, well, it kind of was a wake-up call for like really what we did. Oh, okay. We had a split with Oakland. Jake, do you remember anyone talking about that split with Oakland that we had this week? They haven't, have they? Now, that's rightfully so. We are coming off a 6-game win streak. Obviously, it was snapped today, but not every game is so important over the course of a 162-game season. So it's really hard for me to get revved up about a series against the Dodgers where Garrett Cole might return because, frankly, if Garrett Cole is healthy, he's ready to pitch, he's on schedule, this offense, and I know it's really hard to compliment the offense who we didn't win the game. It's hard to offer compliments for a team. It's hard to listen to them when we come off an ugly loss like that. But let's be clear. When Garrett Cole is added to this rotation, we're winning probably more than any other team in baseball. In my opinion, Jake, and I did not anticipate this at all. We're the best team in Major League Baseball. That's
agree.
A hard thing to say. And it's a hard thing to say for any team. We are playing like the best team in baseball, and we're about to add the best pitcher. So you combine those things, and I'm not worried about what did we do against LA in early June. I'm worried about who are we over the course of a 162-game season, because if we are the best team over that 162 and we're hosting playoff games, Jake, you'll be there. I'll be there, right? And Yankee Stadium is going to show out. This is why we brought these guys to the park. And frankly, this is the first time in a while, Jake, that we actually have reason to be excited to win a World Series. I'm not saying we're going to. Nobody can make that prediction, but we have as good of a chance as anybody.
I agree. I mean, why wouldn't they? They have hitting, they have pitching, they have bullpen, they have, I mean, the one thing they don't have is depth, but they do have it because it's incoming. I mean, They are literally going to put Oswald Peraza in AAA after he finishes rehab assignment because they're not trying to do anything to disrupt what they're doing right now. But they have that to fall back on. They have DJ LeMahieu. They have Pereira, who was on the
They have
team last
Jason
year.
Dominguez,
They
who will
have
be ready
Jason
very soon.
Dominguez. I mean, they have so much depth. It's just, it's not, it's unutilized, I guess. It's not utilized. So, because of the injuries. So there's
Good
that.
problem to have.
Yeah, it's a very good problem to have. So going back to the 6-man rotation here. Stroman, 305. You mentioned that ERA. His whip is now a 1.30, which is much better than it was. Rodon, 327 with a 1.20 whip. Clark Schmidt, 249 with a 1.13. Luis Heel, 239 with a 1.08. And then Nestor Cortez with a 356 and a 1.05 whip. Cortez, the only one with a losing record, but who cares about wins and losses when it comes to starters? We've already talked about that. There are guys getting wins for pitching one, a third of an inning. What I found funny was the Yankees have started 6 starting pitchers all year, and Cody Poteet is the other one. And Poteet has a 1.50 ERA and a 1 whip. Literally, no matter who they've put out there as a starting pitcher, has gotten the job done 90% of the time.
Clayton Beater hasn't even shown up.
No. And I look at this and I say, okay, it might be a little bit of a culture shock. It might be a little bit of an adjustment if all of a sudden Luis Heel has a 6th day to prepare and so forth. But I think that risk is what I'm worth. I'm very willing to take. That I also think is incredibly overblown, and you can get that done during a off day. Okay, you can just and it's really simple, Gary, because this is what you do. Garrett Cole's your ace, so you pitch Garrett Cole, and you just use the same rotation that you want to use. It's really that simple.
Yeah, but also, didn't they tell us that Luis Heel is coming off an injury? So, right?
Well, that too, yeah.
So if Luis Heel is coming off an injury, they said, okay, well, early on in the spring, we're going to have him on a pitch count. We're going to be watching him very carefully because, Jake, remember, the guy who is pitching like our ace right now in Luis Heel, we were talking about a pitch count first. Then we were talking about he's coming out of the game early, smiling off the mound in Arizona because he knows physically I can get through this inning, but Aaron Boone's being very cautious with me. Matt Blake is being very cautious with me. Remember this. Now, yes, they were strategically doing this. That was because of the physical aspect of baseball over the course of the season and the rev-up process. Now, having said that, what better situation could there possibly be for Luis Heel to deal with his injury pass, I should say, and then Garrett Cole dealing with an injury early on? What better situation can you have than a surplus of starting pitchers? In my opinion, you can't find one. I agree.
Well, I don't know if you saw the ESPN article today. Tim Kirchin,
I don't read that stuff. What does it say?
Tim Kirchin said that the Yankees could go after, not even going to believe this.
Oh, please.
Luis Severino. My thing is, why? Not even like, I mean, we talked about him before. Like, Severino's having a good year. Happy for him. You already didn't bring him back. But regardless of that, what about this starting pitching group is like, you know what? They don't have anybody over a 4 ERA. We need to go out and get somebody who can get there. Like, is that your plan? Because honestly, this is the best rotation in baseball without Cole. Currently, right now, there's not a rotation like that right now.
Well, we were talking about like Shane Bieber, all these pickups, right? Corbin Burns, all of those projections that we had about these pitchers, right? All these guys, it doesn't matter who you named. The only names you will see in the comment section right now are relievers. Relievers, and a closer. Those are the names you're going to hear. Jake, who in their right mind? Now, mind you, Tim Kirchin watches baseball. I would assume he watches baseball. I'm not trying to be disrespectful here.
No, I
You
was
would
just
never
confused why he put that out there.
you would never watch this Yankees team and say, you know what they need? Another starting pitcher. With Garrett Cole, we have five. I would probably say we have four great ones and then five highly serviceable starters. And that is having not even introduced Garrett Cole to the situation.
I
Garrett
know.
Cole is showing up and he is leading the dudes that you're watching dominate.
I think I
And
figured
that
it
team,
out.
who? What?
So, do you remember like years ago when Coach Calipari, like I was like Willie Cauley-Stein, all those guys, he
Yeah.
had his five and then he had his backup starting five. And it
Yeah.
was like he used like the platoon. I think Tim Kurchin is onto something. I think he's actually a brilliant man right now. I think he's
Why?
suggesting the Yankees have two starting rotations. Because why else? Why
I
else
should have known
would you?
I should have known you were doing this to me. Are you kidding?
Why else would you ever suggest Severino? Humor me. Why else would you do that? I'm not saying I'm serious. It just doesn't even make sense. You know what I'm saying? That's the closest thing. The Coach Calipari having the two starting rotations, for basketball. That's what I'm thinking of right now. Because Gary, I mean, what's the most that you can really have in a pitching rotation? 6. That's really pushing it. No one else really uses the 6-man rotation.
No, the Angels did. The Angels did accommodate for Shohei Ohtani's routine. That's something that they use in Japan. They've become very accustomed to it. And hell, maybe that works better than a 5-man rotation. I'm sure it keeps guys healthy. We get
I
it.
mean,
Workload.
Maybe that's the direction baseball needs to go in.
Yeah, and
But
there's nothing wrong with that.
no, but 7, because that's what you're suggesting.
You
Unless
see Garrett Cole once every feels like weekend and a half.
unless you're saying, you know what, bring back Severino and put him in the bullpen, because that doesn't even make sense.
No, honestly, this is Jake. This is exactly what's happening. Okay, just to wrap up this topic, Jake. This is what's happening. This is like going to Ruth's Chris or your favorite steakhouse, or your dad cooked a steak because you think his steaks are better than any other steakhouse in the world. And then you lean over and say, hey, can I get some A1 with this? And people said, for what? Because when you say, hey, I want A1 sauce, you're basically saying this steak is ass and I need to cover it with sauce to make this good, right? You're basically saying something is lacking to make this condiment make sense. That's what's happening there.
And the
Severino is going to be joining a team that says we do not have enough starting pitching. That's the only reason that you would trade prospects for a player who's gotten hurt 3 of the last 4 seasons. That's the only reason.
Already on your roster. You let him go. You did not choose to bring him back. This is mental gymnastics at its finest. So, to get us out of the mental gymnastics, to wrap this thing up, because we didn't really talk about the hitters, I got to give a shout out to Alex Verdugo today. He tried,
Incredible.
Okay? This was not the best day, but Alex Verdugo tried to make it the best day. 3 for 5 today, 3-hit game, 3 RBIs, got his average back up to 255, was below 250 going into this game. Love to see Alex Verdugo hitting. 2-out RBI from John Birdie. That was clutch. Judge with his double to start off the game. I just hate that the Yankees wasted a gem from Marcus Stroman. And I understand he's upset about giving up the solo homer. This is not on Marcus Stroman. If your pitcher gives up 1 run through 7 1/3 and you lose that game, that's on you. That's not on the starting pitcher. So
yeah, I don't think anyone thought it was Stroman's fault. I mean, just in general.
No, he was
Marcus
just mad
Stroman,
at himself.
Yeah, it's good to try to be a perfectionist, and overall he's been very good. If you take away like maybe 2 of his last 3 starts where he walked 10, gave up 6, I mean, we're talking about Stroman's ERA is hovering around where Luis Gil is. And are we sitting here talking about a potential Cy Young shortened Cy Young campaign here? That's what we're looking at from Marcus Stroman. They talk about it on the broadcast all the time. He's not dominant in terms of his stuff. He's going to be 80, 90, the 89, 90, 91 on the corner. He's going to try and figure out the strike zone. He's trying to think his way around the field, and frankly, it's working. We've seen it, right? With Nestor Cortez. He doesn't overpower anybody, but he figures out how to work different parts of the zone. They've talked about it with different guys trying to pitch inside. Stroman tends to really work down and away to right-handed batters. He does it consistently. So having said all that, thought Weaver was good again today, but Holmes, like you said, like maybe slightly overworked, who knows? But this, again, Jake, this is to kind of bring it back to this topic. This is part of the reason why, if you remember earlier in the year, you didn't like that he left Holmes in the bullpen. Remember that? And he did not want to pitch Clay Holmes. And Aaron Boone's explanation was, I didn't want him pitching 75 to 80 times this year. That's my goal. And him saying that is buying into a topic I brought up day one on this podcast. You cannot overwork these guys because you can win 104 games, but that doesn't mean you're a 104 win team in the postseason.
Exactly.
That's why
it depreciates.
You depreciate these assets. And the Yankees, it seems like Aaron Boone, I'm not going to over analyze his decision making today.
We like Boone on here. Like let's
we do
be very clear. We've defended him a lot.
Yep.
So I feel like we have some bandwidth here where we can throw him under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, there's give and take with keeping guys fresh. Let's be honest here, Jake.
Absolutely.
If you don't use Clay Holmes, say in that 7-2 game, it ends up being 7-5. You never know. It might end up in a high leverage situation. Holmes comes in, gets hurt. Then you got to bring in somebody, move someone to the bullpen when Cole. So things can start to domino on you, and it sounds ridiculous, but Yankees fans will tell you, we've dealt with injuries before. We've seen things snowball before, and we've also dominated regular seasons, gotten to the postseason, and had our bullpen be a weakness. We've seen it happen. We've also seen it happen when we run out of starting pitching because we don't have guys who can come out. So this team has to find ways to find a happy middle ground. How do we maximize winning? Because Baltimore's on our heels. They always will be. And also, how do we keep these guys healthy? We haven't been a team that could stay healthy. But right now, I think Boone's doing a pretty good job. We're going to criticize some of these moves. I just think naturally really hard decisions to make. And I'm going to try and give him a pass today. I will.
I think the reason I'm not going to give him a pass is going back to what you were saying. When I complained, those were games that the Yankees could have won that I felt like, why was he not in there to close it down? And then you have Caleb Ferguson blowing the game, or, you have Jake Cousins or, whoever. Today was a save opportunity, and totally understand Boone. The rationale is there, makes sense, valid. What's not valid is that you're not sticking behind that same rationale, because essentially you're like, oh yeah, we're not going to put him in a game earlier in the year that's winnable, that, we're leading, and we're not going to put him in as the closer. We're going to put in Caleb Ferguson. But
yes, he contradicted himself a little bit there.
Yeah, and then yesterday against the White Sox, you're putting him in a 7-2 ball game. I don't. That was my issue, and I saw it yesterday, and I don't even know if I mentioned it on my show, but I was not too happy about him pitching in the 7-2 game, because I was like, my first thought was he's not available tonight, and this is a much better team. This is a much more important game. We don't know. The Yankees have the Orioles on their tail, okay? The Orioles could very well take this division out from under them at the very end of the season, and now you're talking about these games against the Mariners deciding who gets home field in the wild card game. So that's how I look at it, Gary.
Yeah, but based on the criteria, Holmes shouldn't have played it. Like, Holmes shouldn't have participated then. If you're telling me that, well, I don't want Holmes to pitch 70 to 75 times, that's a valid take. Now, that might upset some people. But again, like I said, there's give and take. Some games, Holmes is just not going to come out and pitch. You're like, damn, I really could have used one of the best closers in the game tonight. But you have to pick your battles. When do I need him? When do I have to have him? When do I not really need him? And then you kind of figure out how to manage his innings and his usage. But tonight, based on that criteria he gave us back in Arizona, where he did not come out the bullpen, he shouldn't have pitched today. I'm not saying it's the reason he gave up 4, because there's no reason to give up 4 coming out the
Yeah.
bullpen. But yeah, it didn't necessarily match that mentality that he had earlier in the season. So I thought that is a point that you bring up, but it's interesting because it's not consistent there, which when you analyze 162 games, managers will kind of do things a little bit different as the season goes on. You don't really know. He might have just said, well, Holmes is untouchable this game. Let's just shut it down. Like he didn't really think much of it. You never really know what happened. So I would love to bring Boone on the show where we can actually ask him these questions, because I think sometimes these questions, they're not meant to stir up controversy. It's actually trying to get an answer.
Yeah. Well, I think, end of the day, I didn't see a lot of people talking about that. So I feel like it's just kind of like, with our show, we want to ask the questions that aren't being asked. We want to answer questions that haven't been answered. And we want to put out information that's not being put out, because I think it's your right as fans. It's not to say we're experts, we're the smartest people in the world, but we will do the research for you. So, if you want to sound smarter at the water cooler, I mean, hey, we'll drop some knowledge nuggets, and hopefully we're able to do it in a way without using what is it, WRC or run
Weighted runs created plus, yeah.
Yeah, like we don't use all that, so you can actually remember, and it's easy to digest. I think that's really what we want our show to be. Fun fact before we go, Munoz struck out 2, right? The Yankees only had 1 strikeout going in the 9th inning. That is the more you overanalyze this game, the more it'll upset you. So I'm going to stop. But to only strike out once the entire game, and have almost everyone get a hit except for Torres and Trevino, who I have to say, Torres was smoking the ball today. I felt for him. And Trevino got robbed on that ridiculously stupid shift. I wish they would just ban the shift. Last thing I'll say, if a second baseman is playing literally behind second base, like, the first thing I think of is asshole. Like, it comes off as like you just look like an asshole. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't even look like baseball.
They figured out for sure that the best place for guys to stand is just not where they traditionally stand. It's easier to hit the ball up the middle than it is to hit the ball to where the second baseman should be playing. They figured that out very clearly. And then they put the shortstop behind second base because he has a better arm for the deeper throw. All makes sense. But to be honest with you, Jake, the reason the Yankees didn't score more than 4 or 5 runs today is because they grounded into 40 double plays. We grounded into 3 double plays today. They were killer. We didn't really think much of them at the time because we were already up 3-0, right?
Hey,
we're feeling ourselves.
What happens, man?
So it does happen, but you saw Giancarlo Stanton hit a rocket, ends up into a double play, then he hits another one, then Birdie grounds into a double play. So yeah, unfortunate. Sometimes it just happens when you watch every game, but I'm sure we'll be fine tomorrow.
I remember the Yankees turning more double plays than grounding into them at one point. That was a long time ago, but I remember it. Now it feels like double plays are actually hard to come by with this team. And it's weird because I don't feel like their defense is bad at turning too. I just think it seems like everybody they go up against, dude's got Usain Bolt, legs, like the way they just run down, and you're like, oh, the catcher beat it out. I'm like, why is the catcher beating that out? Like,
we're the slower team. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that's consistent about the Yankees is we're not more athletic than the other team ever. So
I do like Soto
whatever.
was trucking it along, and he had a 2-hit day and scored 2 runs and got on base and gave him a chance to win at the end of the game. And Judge did not even know what pitch was thrown. And full disclosure, I have no idea what Verdugo did, because when Verdugo was at the plate, the Yes app literally skipped forward, and I was like waiting for the pitch, and he's down to the final strike, and they're like, ball game. And I'm like, what?
No, they didn't.
Yeah, dude. It was like just
clip.
It was not. I mean, it was funny, but it was also like, are you kidding me? I was sitting there with my roommate, and it's like down to his final strike, and it's the end of the game. It's like, what? It's just
That's how much
you
Munoz
just
or that's how much he shut us down. They're like, you can wrap this. Yes is over.
did he
They turned
ground
it off.
out? I think he grounded out, right?
I don't even remember. It
'Cause
was
the
it was
first
yeah, he did
baseman-
ground out. Yes, he did.
Yeah, the first
Second base.
baseman's jogging, like celebrating, and I'm like, I didn't even see him hit. Like what? I thought he picked off Soto. That's how laggy
Oh
it
no.
was.
No, he didn't. He grounded out to second base. It was just a complete demolition. To be honest with you, Verdugo was the only person with a real opportunity, obviously Soto as well, but the lefties were the only people with a shot. I don't know if you watched Volpe's at bat. Volpe literally looked like someone. Have you ever watched someone play MLB The Show that's never played it before?
Oh my god.
And this is not meant as any disrespect. The dude was throwing 90-mile-an-hour sliders with a 102 on the corner. No chance. None
No,
whatsoever. As soon
Volpe-
as I saw the second pitch, I went and grabbed an apple juice from the fridge and went and sat down somewhere.
somewhere. Like
Yeah,
where?
there was nowhere for me
It
to.
doesn't
There was
matter.
nothing for me to watch. Nothing.
Yeah. I'm just like, all right, I hate baseball. I will never watch that again. But I'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah, my
No.
wife looked at me and she was like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "Nothing. This shit's a wrap. Game's over."
Yeah. No, it was. I just texted you. I was like, what the hell was that? It's like,
Yeah.
because I mean, you're sitting there and you're watching it. It just, I don't know. Those type of endings, giving up 4 runs in the last inning. I mean, it just feels like you've watched that football game, you've watched that basketball game. They keep hitting every 3, and you know the team you're rooting for is settling for that mid-range jumper that's like literally contested and bricking shots left and right. And you're like,
Fade away 2 with their foot in the line. Yeah.
And you're like-
by the way, Jake, if
Yeah.
someone watches this whole podcast of 37 minutes after that type of loss, you love baseball, and that's the type of fan we like. So we appreciate
and
you guys.
you need to go reward yourself. Maybe get yourself an ice cream bar or something. I don't know. Just, I mean, I'm going to be doing that probably. So
Yeah, an Oreo cookie.
but anyway, that's going to do it. Always fun. Even in a loss, we have a blast doing this show, and we have a blast interacting with you guys. So keep doing it. Drop a comment. Let us know what you think. Be sure to like, subscribe. Be sure to follow Gary at Gary Sheffield Jr. Follow me at JK Bogan. Follow the show at Yankees Unloaded on all social media. And we'll be back tomorrow. The matchup. Who is the matchup? Let's see. I got to check. We always
Well, I
do
know
it.
we're playing Seattle. We just started.
Brian Wu taking on Clark Schmidt.
Well,
Brian-
Seattle, they can spin it. So there's one thing's going to be for certain is all these games should be close. I was surprised to see as much hitting as we saw in this game to begin with. So
Gilbert's a good pitcher, but
great pitcher. We did our job. We just didn't close the job. So we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Brian Wu has a sub-1 ERA and a .62 WHIP. So he's only played 9 2/3 innings he's pitched. So we'll see what ends up happening. Clark Schmidt, can he keep this thing up? I mean, it's a good test. Tomorrow, 7:05 normal time. Thank God. But we'll see you guys tomorrow.
And like this video.